So thanks everybody for coming. I'm super excited about the first ever Firehose lightning talk. I think it's going to be really a blast. So basically the gist is we have a few talks lined up from different people. You've probably seen the list of all the different talks that we have. So we're going to be doing that in pretty much the same order that was on the list. One gotcha is Ilya gave a talk, but he wasn't able to make it. So we'll send you a video recording of it after the fact. And kind of how this is going to work is basically each person will sort of go give their presentation. And then if you guys have some questions about it that you want to sort of like go into, we can sort of have like a short amount of like Q&A and sort of have some engaging like that. But that's kind of the gist of sort of like what we're doing. Pretty informal and not a whole lot of structure here, but we'll just see how it works. So I guess to kick us off, maybe Colin. Colin's going to give a talk about Jekyll, which is kind of like this really sweet blogging platform, but I'll let Colin take it from here. So Colin, if you want to share your screen and then get into it, we can start.
All right, sounds good. Just gotta figure out what screen I'm sharing first. Oh, this guy. All right, so it's a short PowerPoint, I promise. So basically I'm going to be talking about is Jekyll, which is a static page generator. I do have a disclaimer. I am not an expert. I just play one online. So what is Jekyll? Jekyll is just basically a simple static site generator. It's a lot like Rails in the means where you have template directories and then you kind of, it does a lot of the magic for you, so you really don't have to hassle much. So you basically want to use it for any low maintenance sites, any sites that don't have a database, something that you don't have to update on a regular basis. You don't have a ton of people updating it. There are some CMS stuff that you can tie into it, but it's too much of a pain in the ass for what you want to do it. So installing Jekyll is super easy. Gem install Jekyll, Jekyll new, and then your project name, and then Jekyll serve. So it's not a whole lot different from building out a Rails app. I did run into some common issues with Vagrant, and considering that probably most of us are using Vagrant, I figured it would be a good purpose to putting these out. So the first thing I ran into was anytime you run Jekyll and then the command, it would just say command not found. Basically what's happening is that the Ruby environment isn't initializing the Jekyll executable. So you just have to run the eval, this little code here, and then you're good to go. The other thing is Vagrant is set up specifically to forward port 3000 to 3030, and that's how we access the local host. But as far as Jekyll goes, the default is 4000. And then also the default for the host is 127.0.0.1, so it forwards localhost, which doesn't work, so you have to put in all the zeros. And then here's some sites that use Jekyll. Got some links, and I'll just show you them quick. So healthcare.gov, the parts that work. Barack Obama's campaign website was designed with Jekyll. GitHub Pages was designed. Development Seed is a consulting company, and they do a lot of stuff with Jekyll. I think they're a pretty big maintainer of some of the stuff too. And that's that. So I'll just show you some of the websites with that use Jekyll. So you can kind of see the power and the capabilities. Very simple. There's not a lot of database. You can hook in search stuff as well. And then this is Barack Obama's campaign website. Again, very simple, but looks good. It's powerful. And of course, this is in my way. So this is CSS Wizardry, which is just another website. Basically, they're just different variations of what you can do with Jekyll, and then the GitHub pages. And there's also on GitHub's or on Jekyll's GitHub, and their wiki. They have a ton of other websites that use it with the source code, so you can take a look at how they're designed, which is pretty useful because it can be a pain in the ass to try and figure out learning Markdown language. So I will just do a live demo, see what happens. So I personally just created a folder inside my Vagrant box, and then just called it Jekyll. So as far as getting it installed, just do gem install Jekyll. I already have it installed. Takes a minute. And then just and then all your files will be pre-built just like Rails. It's pretty straightforward. And I'll show you what the code looks like, and then we'll just run it quick too. So to run it, there is a couple of ways, and I covered it, and I'll share my page with how to fix the stuff. But if you want to just go right off the bat and run it, you can. Oops. And that is what it comes like right out the gate. So it's already pre-built for everybody. It makes it really quite simple to use. So some things that you should know is it's very much like Rails in the sense that like in the layouts folder, you'll have your default page. It's a little bit different, but you'll have default pages. It's just going to be your pre-built template. And then includes is more like the layouts folder where you have your header, so you can build everything in there, so you only have to do it once. Same with the footer, same with the head. The head's going to be all your metadata. The header's going to be your navigation, and then the footer is obviously your footer. The big changes, though, are in config.yml. So this is where you're going to add your site's title, the emails, your data, and then there's a bunch of other settings you can build into the build settings portion of this, which Jekyll's files have tons of them. So if you look at all the stuff you can do. So there's all this stuff, and I don't have time to go over all of it. If you want, we can afterwards. But there's just a bunch of stuff you can add in there, make things a little bit easier, hook a bunch of services up so you don't have to deal with it. But for the most part, that's basically it. I did work on a different one earlier today, so I'll show you that. And that is this is gonna be fun. So this is what I did today. Pretty generic, but you can really kind of build out a lot of stuff. And then I also pushed it to, you can use GitHub pages to host Jekyll. So I pushed everything there, and I can share that with everybody too if they want to take a look at it for this actual links. I did expand on the common gotchas with Vagrant and explain how to fix a lot of that stuff. So that's about it. So if anybody has questions, feel free to ask.
So I have a question. Does Jekyll support theming, or like do you have to build all the CSS stuff yourself?
There are a ton of themes for it. I built out the CSS just because I wanted to learn it, but it uses Sass, so everything that we've been learning in the course, we basically can just kind of transfer it. And I could show you the code too. So as far as the CSS go, you have your main, which is like all like the media queries, the hard-coded stuff that will be referenced in other ones. You have your base, so all your HTML elements, all that lovely things. And then the layouts is basically where you do all your custom stuff. So, but I'll actually show you what, let's see here. This is what an actual post looks like. So actually that's probably useful. So I can show you how to create one of those. If you want to create a post, you want to do the date. Let's see here. And then the name of whatever your post you want to do, and then it's going to be Markdown. You can use Liquid. I think you can use ERB as well, but the default styling and input is Markdown language, which I have links for useful resources because the original maintainers, I have a horrible website. So I have all that settled for everybody as well.
Cool, good stuff. Does anybody else have any questions? Just jump right in if you have some.
Just to confirm, the cool thing with Jekyll is everything is Ruby, right?
Yeah, everything's Ruby.
Awesome.
So, well, Ruby and Markdown.
Very nice.
Cool.
And there are JavaScript plugins. There's tons of plugins for it. It's very well supported. It's the #1 static page generator, so there's tons of people who work on it. It's just like the Rails community. It's pretty deep.
Cool, good stuff. Anybody else have any other questions? Cool. So I think we're good. So yeah, cool. Thanks so much, Colin. That's an awesome talk. And it seems like Jekyll's actually really awesome. Like I didn't have any firsthand experience with it, but just watching it actually like really learned a lot from it. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see how easy it is, and like the templating is something you're so used to with Rails.
Yeah. The biggest hurdle was learning Markdown. I think that was the biggest hurdle to deal with it. I was talking to Ken earlier, I spent like an hour trying to figure out how to get an embedded YouTube video in there, which I will post a how-to of doing that because it's really helpful. But yeah, it's fairly simple. I mean, when I went to that meetup about this, I had a site up and going and modified in less than an hour, which was really nice.
Cool, good stuff.
And it's free. And hosting is free.
Cool. So next up, we would have Nico, but Nico actually, he was just on the call. Like we all came like a little bit early to talk about sort of the protocol. And Nico made it. He stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning his time, and then his internet died. So hopefully he can come back soon. But we'll see sort of how that works. Maybe he'll be able to give the talk later in the talk, or maybe he'll just have to save it for another time. But now we got Angel up. So Angel's going to give a talk about the Twilio API. So Angel, why don't you take it away?
That's not cool, man. I thought I had like another 7 minutes to think this through. All right. Well, I guess here we go. Hold on, let me get my stuff ready. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm not sure how familiar anyone is with Twilio. I know I wasn't before. Twilio is a pretty cool API. It lets you send SMSs, it lets you send multimedia messages, and you can also integrate into phone calls. And they have a really cool REST API, and you could really do a lot of things with messaging. So that's actually something that I work pretty much on a daily basis with when it comes to integrating into the API. And just some of the samples, you have the base URL, and then if you wanted to send a message, you have all these posts. You just pretty much post a message to the correct route with in JSON, and that's how you get everything done. So we could build everything from scratch, but then again, we're Ruby coders, so there's always something better, and there's a gem for it. So there's a Twilio Ruby gem, and it integrates everything, and it's such an easy thing to get started with. So that's what I started doing. Here's the installation, so pretty much just add this to your gem file, and then a little bit of configuration. So that's kind of what I'm gonna go over right now. Let me see if I can present this. Did that go into full screen? Perfect. So I wanted to do this very formal Twilio API talk, so I got a formal looking slide, but that wasn't going to work for me. So then this is my real start. So don't lose your tacos using Twilio. And that's the topic of the talk right now. So to get started, this is how you set it up. You need an account SID and authentication token. And then the neat part is that to send an SMS, it's really simple. Client.messages.create, your from number, your to number, and the body is just a text that you want to include with that. So it's very easy setup. So I was super happy because once I got this and started working, and they asked me to integrate that. And hold on, before I do this, let me show you why we need this. So here's our homepage. Visitor, the only way to sign up with the company that I work with is through a phone number. So you would input in your number, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And once you hit get sent, you would get a confirmation text message from us. So for me to be able to do that, I had to get something going. And this is what it is. So it's a very simple method. Here's the SID, the auth token, the from phone number. And here you go, that piece of code that we saw earlier. Messages.create, from phone to the SMS phone. And hey, this is Sensei, look out for an invitation soon. So very simple, I was super happy. But as a developer, then you start realizing that when you do something good, then somebody wants more of it. So now I have another method for a second SMS. And the thing is that, you know, here I am new and I don't want to bother with trying to figure everything out. So I just go ahead and say, hey, if the first one worked, let me just make another one just like it. It'll probably work. And it did. And then they wanted another one. And then they wanted some more. And this is how my model, my user model started looking. So I had all these things and it just didn't feel right to have so much code doing the same thing. And I'm sure it wasn't right. So I started looking for something a little bit better, and that's something that might help you out if you're trying to figure out how to implement this. So I thought I could do a little bit better. I kind of reached out for some help, and this was a little bit better. So get all my variables started in the beginning, and start up my Twilio client, and then be able to do just a simple message to a method. It's good, it's better, but it's still tied into your user model. It's still only something that I can use with a user model. So I started thinking maybe I could do a little bit better. And that's when I remembered this right here from the Twilio Ruby gem instructions. Alternatively, you can pre-configure the client like so. So I went ahead and made an initializer in Twilio.rb, and I went ahead and initialized the Twilio client like so. So there you go, that's the example. That's what I coded, pretty much exact copies, just only difference is using some environment variables, but that's about it. Once I did that, then I remembered that Rails is Ruby and we can just create new Ruby objects. So that's what I did, created a new class. So this is my SMS class, initialize the SMS with a phone and a message, and then pretty much just create a send the SMS method. So here's my from phone, here's initializing the client, and here's the way I do it. So now what this gave me, it's a new ability. Instead of having to go through all that code and be tied into the user model, now I can just do something very simple. SMS.new, my phone number, the copy of the text, and then the method to send the SMS. So here's me typing this in, here's Twilio reacting to what I was doing, and oops. And here's the message I got to my cell phone. Hello, Firehosers. And I don't want all your numbers so that you won't get a message from me today. But here it is. So that was a very simple. So now with that new superpower of being able to just do that SMS.new, it's time to go back to my user model. So I made a private method, send the SMS, and then it takes in a copy variable. So SMS.new, the user.phone, and the copy, and then call the send SMS method, send SMS method. So now it's time to go back to my old code and see what we can do. So this whole ugly piece of thing all of a sudden became two very simple, clean lines of code. Defining what the copy variable is, and I did it that way just to kind of keep it a little bit neater looking rather than just putting all the copy right inside the parentheses. So every method now is just send, copy equals, send SMS, and then pass along the copy. So we went from this, or I went from this, to just that. It's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to read, a lot easier to change if I need to do it in the future. And that is how you become a lord of Twilio and tacos. So that was my presentation.
Cool, cool. Does anybody have any questions for Angel?
how does Twilio handle the responses? So I use Sensei, and I actually really like the product.
Cool, man, thanks.
So I think was very interesting on getting it to work. So is the anonymity of the send and receiver part of the Twilio, or is that part of other proprietary code?
It's a mix. It's a mixture. So the way we're doing send and receive. So for those that don't know, what we're doing at Sensei, where I work, is you send an initial message to our main phone number. But when you get paired up with someone that's going to help you, or pretty much just start a chat, you're starting a chat from a different phone number. And that number is still anonymous. So they're not getting your number, you're not getting their number. Both of you are just seeing the Sensei number. So the way, in part, we're accomplishing that is Twilio has these things. Let me see if I can see it in the documentation here. They've got their own language, XML, and this is a set of instructions you can combine with Twilio that says, if you get this, what do we do with it? So we're having them forward those messages to our routing engine, and then you can use the API to call the ID of each message. So that's how we're pairing you up. So we know who sent it in, we assign an ID to that, and then we're pairing up those IDs. So even though in reality you're just texting Twilio, now we're calling the ID on that. We're getting notified that a message came in, we're pairing it up again, and then resending you another message. And that's how we're pretty much accomplishing that. So it's pretty neat. There's a lot of stuff going into that to make sure that we don't lose track of messages. Sometimes we run into issues like carrier issues that we are out of our control, things like that. But for the most part, that's what it is.
Awesome.
How many phone numbers does your app have? So like I've messed around with Twilio, and they have like the ability to automatically, like through the API, to build a new phone number that you have, but then you have to like pay per month per number that you have allocated, and that can those charges can add up really quickly if you have like multiple phone numbers. So like, how many phone numbers do you have, and do you have any systems to like manage the wrangling of the phone numbers that you have?
We have 10, we had 10 phone numbers. We have more now, but we had 10 phone numbers. And really, since we can use the same phone number for different chats, for different people, we can reuse that number because Twilio has no concept of a chat. All they know is they're SMSing in and SMSing out. So what we're doing is we're taking those unique IDs out of that chat, and that's how we're pairing you up. So we can use those 10 numbers for a lot of chats, a lot of concurrency. So we're not really running into that. I think the main reason that we added more numbers wasn't really a scalability thing. It was more of trying to show a little bit of presence in different area codes. Honestly, that's about it.
Super interesting. Cool stuff. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, have you done anything with the Twilio voice side of things, or has it all been SMS or MMS?
On my end, I've only done things on the SMS side. I started looking into the voice, and there's a lot of neat things you can do with it. It's all similar, and if you actually use a Twilio Ruby gem, you can also do the voice features with it. So the routes are laid up very similarly. They very well documented. That's what I really like about Twilio. So I don't think you should have a lot of trouble getting that set up, especially because they have all these resources for it. If you have time, look for the how-tos and examples. They have a lot of neat examples both on SMS and on voice. And they kind of just walk you through the code. A lot of them have Ruby code already ready. And you can kind of learn a lot just by looking through what they do.
Cool.
Cool, good stuff. Does anybody else have any other questions? Cool, good stuff. So yeah, that was an awesome talk. Really interesting stuff about the Twilio API and sort of the depth that you sort of had to get into that because of sort of the stuff that you guys do over at Sensei. Like really pretty fascinating stuff. So awesome talk, Angel.
Thanks, man.
So Ben, you're up, and your talk is a mystery to everybody. So we have no idea what we're about to get ourselves into. So Ben, master of mystery, let's get into your talk.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Oh, this is bad. It's right at the end. All right. Can you see that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Zoom hanging out in the front of the chat. I'm very well prepared. All right, so hi, I'm Ben Ricker, and this is a lightning talk. There's a lightning bolt emoji. This is lightning. I got a lot of gifts in here, so get ready. This is my GitHub. I have 6 followers. You might know me. I work at Liaison International. My email. So here's 4 tweets and a lie about me as an introduction. I'm a software engineer too at Liaison International. I'm a graduate of the Firehose network, and I still troll the Slack channel. I'm half of the popular rap group Drake. I'm red-green colorblind, which is a great excuse for not writing tests, and I own a lot of dumb domains like kingof.pizza, puglab.com, the net is vast, wow the net, too much net, and a bunch of other dumb ones. And I actually don't know Drake that well. We're pen pals, but I've never actually met him. He doesn't reply to my tweets. But why are you listening to me? Someone made me give a lightning talk. I might have some helpful advice for you. It would be very rude of you to leave because I've already begun and you're stuck now. And I've been where you are and I've made it out alive. So by made it out alive, I mean I've graduated the boot camp, I put in the work, and I now work as a full-time developer, which I think is a lot of the goals of people here. I think a lot of people are either trying to do something entrepreneurial or they're working to become a full-time developer. So that was my goal when I was in the boot camp, was to become a full-time developer. So I made it out and did that. So what's the deal with my job? I work on the new features team at Liaison International, and we deal with college applications for schools and student side. We build lots of new stuff and fix old broken junk, and lots of schools joining, so there's a lot of work to be done, and we don't have enough developers, so maybe you. So a big part of this for me was transitioning to a professional developer. I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought it was going to be very scary. I did not feel all that well prepared, but I ended up going through the interview process and it worked out great. So a lot of people have asked me, what is your day like? I think a lot of people who are in the boot camp don't really know what a full-time developer does for, 10 hours a day. So my average day, this is me logging on my computer in the morning to the right. At 9 o'clock, I usually come in and I check tickets from yesterday. So we get our work assigned to us by checking, product managers give us tickets and we perform the work on the ticket and then we close it out. So we have a stand-up meeting every morning at 10 a.m. So I usually try to get ready for that by figuring out what I did yesterday and, what I'm going to talk about in the stand-up meeting. So 10:20 on, it's usually just getting to work. It's a lot like what you do, except without the guides in a lot of cases. So what you're preparing to do in coding is just that big chunk of the day of getting to work. And that involves working on tickets that are assigned to you by product managers, pairing with other developers, reviewing other developers' tickets, and then making copy, choosing diffs for pull requests, and hanging out with your dog if you work from home. So then there's other days where everything's a disaster and you're just cleaning up the mess, putting out fires for the whole day. And it's more common than you might think, but it's not like weekly or anything, but there's usually days where you got to put out a fire. So the job transition can be very scary. So this movie wasn't that scary, but it's the scariest GIF I could find. But I had a lot of misconceptions about when I was going to start my job, because having never worked in programming before, I thought, I'm not really that ready. I go in completely unprepared. And that kind of links with the third one there, if I'm the only one who would help. But it's actually pretty well prepared. I ended up doing quite a bit better than I thought I would. And I really felt that the boot camp prepared me for that. So that's what the boot camp is all about, is getting you ready for your goal, whether that's entrepreneurial work or whether that is working as a full-time developer. I had a lot of comments from other developers saying that I was a lot more prepared than I thought I was. And I really stepped in right off the bat and started contributing. And another big part of that is people will think that I know more than I really do. And that's what they check during the interview process. They're not just there to shake hands and say hi. They're really measuring your skills and seeing if you're a good fit for the position. So if you can get through stages like that, then you are ready. And, imposter syndrome is super heavy, but keep in mind that these people know better than you do. And that's why they're in their position. So they're a really good judge of if you know enough. And some of the worst advice I've had, fake it till you make it. This is really horrible advice. It's just pretending that you know stuff that you don't. And that's not how you learn. I really didn't even try this because everyone said, a lot of people just pretend that they know what they're doing, and it's a really bad idea because you're never going to learn that way. No one here thinks that you're coming in as a senior level developer, and don't act like it. Don't act like you know everything. You're going to learn a lot more if you just ask every sort of questions, because no one will get annoyed. So really, it should be this scary instead of a bear coming out or whatever. This is the dumbest scary GIF I could find. So here's a series of dumb mistakes that I made at my job and their consequences to really show that everything is fixable. There's really nothing you can do that's going to totally break everything. So the first one, I worked off the wrong branch for hours. So I was working on a new feature, and I was on the wrong branch. I didn't even realize it. And I worked for about 5 hours. So I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do here? I asked somebody, and they said, well, just delete the branch and cherry pick the commits. So from that, I learned it's super easy to just cherry pick your commits, which is grabbing your commits from a different branch and putting them onto the one that you intended to work off of. So this took about 2 hours of worrying and maybe 45 seconds to fix. So terror level is 3. It wasn't that bad. I knew there was going to be worst case scenario, just some wasted time. This one, I deployed to QA and had to leave the office to beat traffic. This one was a little tougher to explain because it was just I didn't want to be in the office. But someone else pretty much just said, okay, that's not a big deal. I will take care of that. The outcome was I drove home and beat traffic, and someone else pretty much did the whole thing for me. So that one was a little worse because it was my responsibility, and I just left. But it was fine. Someone who was more experienced did it anyways. And it was a hot fix. No one wants to deal with that. I pushed to the master branch. This one was a lot worse. I was really freaking out because I thought I broke the enterprise, though, the whole thing. I thought, this is horrible. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this. Someone said, don't worry about it. Everyone does that. We'll just revert that commit. So no one else even knew about it. Only the person who I had gone to for help, and it was not a big deal at all. This is why there's items in place like GitHub and Git, and there's all sorts of mitigating factors. You can't even push to production, really. And terror level was 8. I thought I was in a lot of trouble there. And the worst one, I accidentally messaged a product manager a joke about a product manager. And I did not get a response. I don't know if he did not see it or what, but the outcome was that there's a really cool feature in HipChat where you can edit your last message. So you can even change it to say, hi, I hope you're having a great day. And I thought I was in a lot of trouble with that one, but nothing happened in that either. So my advice after graduating is definitely continue to build stuff. You are fresh out of the bootcamp and you're in a really good position to just keep on learning. You're in a really good position to contribute to open source and get your name recognized. Stay active in learning and teaching especially. I found that teaching other people really solidifies what you are learning. So I'll touch on that more later. But let your friends that you rule the web. So really try to get friends involved in this too. So say, this is what I've learned and it's, I really like it, or, warn them, say you don't like it, whatever you want to tell them. But I've tried to get a lot of friends involved. My friend Joe is actually here with us today because we talked about coding and he wants to get involved. So ask for help in looking for a job. And the bootcamp is a really good place for this because you have lots of other people with similar goals and you're not necessarily competing for the same market because a lot of you guys are across the country from each other. And you have people like Angel and I who might be able to help you out with that. Ken's a really good resource too. So this is a really good place to ask for help for looking for a job, even if it's just looking at your resume, looking at your GitHub, seeing where you can improve. Be social and make connections. Be active everywhere. There's no wrong place to look for new friends in coding, whether that's at meetups or whether that's on Twitter, GitHub, anywhere. Teach others is a big part of it. I'm still here at Firehose. I'm trying to help people out in the Slack channel and on the forums. And I found that it's the best resource for me to solidify what I know is to try to teach to others, try to explain it. Because if you can't explain it simply, then you just don't understand it. That's not a verbatim quote. I just wrote that before we went on today. So that's been a big part of it for me. And that is it. Finn.
I love it. Cool stuff.
Very cool, man. Good talk.
Does anybody have any questions for Ben?
Where'd you get all your GIFs?
I was going to ask that question too, Angel.
I'm a professional with that. That's the only thing I'm good at. Let's see. I can't find the screen. Oh, I'm still sharing. I'll post the link in chat.
I got a question for you, Ben. What was like the first commit that you made that was kind of validating that you actually knew some stuff about this thing we call coding?
Well, the first thing I thought I was just like a secret agent when I did this thing because it seemed like it was of such high consequence. It was refactoring. We have two different types of schools. We have the older schools, which are CAS 2, and then we have newer schools, which are CAS 3. I have my video off. And what the big thing was is that social security numbers didn't work on CAS 2, but they worked out great on CAS 3. So I had to refactor the social security system to work on both of them. And I thought that was this huge thing because social security numbers are so important. And I learned now based on the story points that it would have taken an average developer like 2 days to do. And it took me, I think, 3 weeks. But I was so happy because I contributed. But I did that almost right out of the gate. I think that was, I set up my environment week 1, and then week 2, I started getting to work on that.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I was terrified. I thought, there's no way I'm going to be ready for this. I think, I'm getting carried here, and maybe, 6 months down the line, I'll be able to contribute. But you're really ready. Everything that you're going to work on is pretty, familiar to you. You just need to get your grips.
So Ben, how'd you get your foot in the door at Liaison?
And I think I put my resume out on dice.com. I really tried to get my foot anywhere I can get it. I'd send it out to everybody. And a recruiter actually came out to me and said, hey, we think you're a good fit for this position. And it's like, yeah, well, I heard that 100 times. But, in my position, I can't turn down any sort of chance I can get. So I followed through with it, and it ended up working out great.
Cool, good stuff. Anybody else have any questions for Ben?
So you're remote. How do you do your stand-up meetings? Do you just like this, just Skype in or whatever?
Usually this, yeah. Usually try to just get, we do it on Google Hangouts. So it's usually, some people do video. I don't do video because I usually talk and then I leave. So I'll not leave, but like get to work and tune out. Because other people, I know what everyone else on my team is doing. The product managers just want to know what everyone's up to. So I'm usually on Google Hangouts, but there's a call-in line.
What's your stand-up format?
I think they're trying to switch over to more of a Scrum format. Right now, it's just flat out, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? Do you need help with anything? And they call on people if you don't, raise your hand, like it's high school.
Because we do our stand-up, but we don't do video or chat. We just do it on Slack and just, kind of everyone remote. So we do 1, 2, 3, 1, P1s for today, 2, what you're going to work on next, and 3, any blockers, whether it's someone else blocking you, you're waiting on someone to finish something. On my end, a lot of times I'm waiting on copy to be able to finalize something. So I was just curious on how you do it.
I would think that would be a better format, and it's a lot less pressure. It's not a high pressure situation. But we have certain product managers don't have access to HipChat, and certain developers just don't want to use Skype. All the product managers are on Skype. All the developers are on HipChat. So there's no overlap there. So we just do it by phone, or it's feeling more antiquated every day.
Gotcha.
But it's how we're doing it. I'll suggest that. I'd love to get on Slack, but I think we use Jira for our ticket management, and it's the same company as HipChat, so we get it.
Yeah, Slack is pretty awesome, dude. I've been digging it more and more. I get to use it.
Cool stuff. Anybody else have any questions for Ben?
Oh, Tim. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I saw Tim posted one in the chat.
Yeah, that was the one I posted in the chat. I was going to see if you saw it now.
Yeah, I just saw it. I almost interrupted you with your question. I think for continuing to keep learning once you finish the program is really just keep building stuff. That's how you're going to learn the most. You can't break anything when you're working on your own stuff, especially that's a great way to learn to use Git, is just keep on trying to build stuff. Even if you have to follow other guides out there, you'll learn how other stuff works. Like there's tons of books out there, there's tons of online guides, and that's the best way to learn, at least for me, was to see how other people build things and really find out what's working for you. And that's how I started to be able to build my own stuff, is by seeing how other people build their stuff. But it's different for everybody. Some people are great at just experimenting and figuring out how to build stuff that way. But one of my favorite ways to do it too is just looking at open source projects and seeing, where could I help? And then kind of, even if you don't make a contribution, you can try to test stuff locally on your machine.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Good stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, I could talk to Ben for a while.
I would like to know how was the interview process. I know a lot of us are kind of scared about the interviews. So.
Yeah, the interview process, I mean, you're either ready for it and you're ready for the job, or you're not. And if you don't like the interview process, then it's probably not a great place to work. I know I've had interviews where they're really intense. They come in and they absolutely drill you about, do you know this? Do you know this? And it's you shouldn't be treated like that as a junior level developer. But I mean, if you really want a job and you know all the answers, then it could be a good fit for you. I actually turned down an offer at a place that it just didn't seem like a good fit, even just based on the interview process. But I ended up getting a job at this place because it was really nice. Everybody was really nice and informative. They understood that you don't know everything, and they actually had questions where they kind of seemed like if you were going to fake your way through it. Everyone was super friendly, but it was just 2 phone interviews. One of them was because we had the polar vortex or whatever. It was supposed to be an in-person. And then an in-person interview pretty much just to go in and sign the papers and, do the final steps. But I think it was 2 really kind of long phone interviews and then just the in-person meeting. But it was mostly more general stuff. It wasn't, can you answer this question for me over the phone about how you would code this? It was more kind of themed answers like how long should a method be? What would you do about, if you had a old controller that doesn't have tests, how would you refactor it? And for stuff like that, they're looking for, I would write the test and then I would try to refactor the controller that way. So a lot of it is just, it's not very super specific questions. It's more based on, what would you do in this situation?
Hey, Ben, I don't know if this holds, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off whoever was going to answer. Your answer.
Go ahead, Angel. Whoever had the
go ahead.
Because it was kind of like to add to that question. I don't know if you found out or you found this true, but there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know either.
No, definitely not. And that's kind of what it was.
Very true on my end. I mean, if I didn't know something, I just said I don't know. And I always said I could try to explain to you what I think it is, or how I think I would do it. And a lot of times you're like, oh, yeah, just tell us how you think. And now you're just kind of showing your thought process, even though you don't know specifically how the right answer, but at least you're showing how you think about things and how you would try to figure things out. And that worked for me actually quite well. Like if I didn't know something, I just, you know what, I don't know, I haven't done that before. This is what I could think it would be. And people are kind of receptive. I like the fact that you mentioned that you're not fooling anyone into thinking you're a senior dev. You're just not. It's very noticeable, but it's okay. It's okay to be a junior dev.
Yeah, it's totally okay to know where you are. I mean, it's much worse to think, I belong to be up with the higher end guys. And, that's what I was kind of saying in my last answer is we actually had a question to say, do you know this? And it was obvious that there's no way I could know it. It was something about like the priority of where a certain line of Ruby would go in I forget exactly what the question was, but the whole point of the question was to be, would you try to fake the answer to this? And I had no idea, and I had no problem saying I had no idea. And everyone goes, okay. Like they had like an upward inflection as if to say, okay, good job. Like you didn't try to BS us. Nice. But yeah, I mean, you got to know where you are. You got to know where your skills lie and where you need to improve even. And that can be a strength for a junior developer and not just kind of, trying to fake your way. That's what I had in there is don't try to fake it till you make it. That was really bad advice from a former junior developer.
Was it
a different boot camp though?
Oh, okay.
You didn't go there.
I didn't tell you that, did I, Ben?
Cool, good stuff. Any other questions for Ben?
Yeah, I had a question.
Cool.
So I guess I was just wondering, by the time you started applying for jobs, what did your portfolio look like? How many projects did you have, and how important of a role do you think that played in the entire process?
I had about 1/3 of a 1-month Rails application done. And then I had everything from Firehose. No, actually, I didn't even finish Flixster. I had Nomster. I had a group project. And then I had 3 different front-end freelance jobs. And I had one about half-built full-stack freelance job. So it was really, it adds up to about what all your projects should end up being at Firehose. because I didn't finish up building Flixer. I didn't finish up building that back end freelance job. So nothing more than most of the students here will build. And I didn't necessarily feel like I had a huge leg up from building those freelance jobs either. I mean, if you have a capstone project, it's the same thing. So, but everywhere I sent out my GitHub, I was kind of worried, thinking like, oh, I'm not really necessarily ready for this. And then everywhere I sent out my GitHub, I ended up getting a follow-up interview pretty quickly. So it's, you're really getting pretty well prepared to have a good portfolio here at Firehose.
That's good to hear, because I keep feeling like, I'm only in week 6, but I keep feeling like, man, I feel like I'm never going to feel ready, to apply.
I still don't feel ready. I would think like I'm
agree with you.
I've been there for almost 5 months now, and I feel like I'm not ready to even start looking for a job if I wasn't there. So,
all right, I'm not the only one. Sweet, Ben.
Huh?
I'm not the only one who feels that way, Ben.
No, I mean, imposter syndrome is so huge, but that's the thing is you come to places like this so you don't have to worry about imposter syndrome. I mean, Firehose is a really great resource, and I had one of the product managers wasn't really sure about it because he hadn't heard about it, but then he went and checked it out, and he actually came back with really high praise for it. So, I mean, you're in the right place to mitigate, imposter syndrome, but it's so heavy. I have friends who have been doing this for 10 years and they're still terrified of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think, I forget his name. He was on Code Newbie podcast, not the same episode as Angel, but he's a senior developer at Microsoft. And he said, I go into work every day thinking that someone's going to find out that I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's been a software engineer for something like 15 years. So it's not you, it's the whole industry. There's so much to know about programming that there's just no way you can know it all, especially this early on. It's going to take a while to get comfortable, but that shouldn't slow down, your application process for looking for jobs.
Gotcha.
If I could add something to that, especially right now that I've been hosting the Ruby Monday thing on the Code Newbie channel, there's so many people that do like tutorials and they're really strong coders. I mean, they know Ruby very well. And they just don't ever feel ready. I mean, I get that question so often on the Slack channel, which is, how do I know I'm ready? And no one ever feels ready. And I think that, at least in Firehose, that you're still going through it, you have a big advantage, because it's kind of like at the end of the 12 weeks, like you have Ken and the other mentors telling you, dude, you're ready. Like, go, you're ready. And that's something that a lot of people that have done like tutorials on their own, they are probably really ready. A lot of them, I always feel that a lot of them are stronger coders than I am. But they don't have that like kind of little stamp that someone's telling them, go, like you're done, go look for a job, hurry up. And I think Firehose does that for you. Like if you really go kind of pay attention to the program, you're done, you're ready as a junior dev. You really are, keep learning, keep working on stuff, but you shouldn't really wait too much after that. I mean, with what you have here, that's a decent enough portfolio to kind of go ahead and get started as a junior dev.
Yeah, the one thing I might add to that, everything is spot on, but like the process, like get ready, like you are ready probably, but get ready to get like punched in the face like 100 times, right? So it's not like it's just gonna be like, cool, you send out one email and then you get a job and you walk in and it's good. Like there's a shit ton of work sort of involved in the whole process too. And a lot of times like you might see sort of like some talks like this where it's just like, oh, it sounds like Angel just sort of walked into the job and Ben just applied on Dice and he just like you're not hearing the whole backstory. No. And I think if you did hear the whole backstory, you would actually believe what these guys are saying, where it's like, I still don't know if I feel like I'm ready, because it's hard. So trust us when we tell you that you're ready, but at the same time, don't let the first time you get punched in the face just like cripple you and sort of cause you to be like, oh, I'm not ready, because that's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, and a big part of it is finding a good fit, because you can take 3 months applying for a job and take the first one and like, oh, I have a job, but if you don't like it, but then you really got to find a place that works well. And that's part of getting punched in the face 100 times. You can go in an interview that doesn't feel right, but you still get a follow up, and that can be a punch in the face. And like someone said in the chat, Angel said it. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Great quote by my guy. But I applied jobs for I think about 2 months before I found mine, and there were tons of them where just like that was awful. That was the worst interview I've ever been on, and it's not all daisies when you're out there applying for a job. So,
what was the dress code like?
At my house right here?
No, as far as like the interview process. So we've talked before. I'm from kind of the same background you are. So going into like sysadmin IT stuff, you're kind of expected to dress nice or more than business casual. Is that the same kind of thing as far as like web developers, or when you go in for an interview with a bunch of web developers, is it just, are you completely out of place if you show up in overdressed? Because I know I've got programming friends that do hiring, and they're like, we just don't like when people come in a suit and tie, and like, it's not going to be a good fit if they're too uptight like that. So I'm just kind of curious what was the expectation there?
That's a good point about a culture fit kind of thing, because if you don't like wearing a suit and tie and you go into an interview wearing a suit and tie, you're kind of putting off the people who you would be a good culture fit with. But it's also a point about, knowing your environment where you're applying for. If you're applying to Microsoft, if you're applying to, a big, Facebook, something like that, you need to dress up. And this is actually a good story. Is the place I work at now, I went on a Skype interview and I wore a suit and tie to a Skype interview, and they didn't even turn the camera on. So I was just sitting there in a suit and tie for about an hour and a half, just, but yeah, I think for most of the people we have on a Skype interview, if they do turn the camera on, it's usually just like a button-up shirt and a tie, sometimes a tie. Most people don't wear a full suit and tie.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like for me personally, like I remember I used to always go to interviews in a suit and tie, and then I was like on the interview process, and the guy that ever walked through the door was just wearing a t-shirt. And then afterwards I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, why? And then like from that point on, I'm like, I'm not going to wear a suit and tie to an interview. That's just stupid. But yeah, it's like people do different things. Do what you feel comfortable with. Cool. Any other questions, comments for Ben? Cool, good stuff. Let's keep going then. So I think I'm on the last one. So I'll give a quick plug for my world's famous or my most the gem, Ruby gem that I just think is literally the best in the world. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit about this gem called lolcommits. So what lolcommits is it's a way to take selfies when you do a git commit, and it's actually pretty easy to use. So you can scroll down, here's some example images of different people committing code and looking kind of like miserable and like wearing costumes and stuff. But it's actually really easy. So basically the gist of it is, well, first, this doesn't work through the Vagrant environment. So if you want to use lolcommits, you actually can't use the sort of full Vagrant environment setup that we have. Instead, you're going to need to install it on the Mac OS natively. So you'll have to do that. It's pretty easy to install packages with Homebrew, so you can follow this step and run this gem install lolcommits. Same thing with the Jekyll gem. When the lolcommits gem is like has a binary or it has like executable, it sort of is a program that you can run within the environment. And basically the gist is after you do a gem install lolcommits or gem install Jekyll, you need to sort of like repopulate all of the programs that are in your environment. So two ways to do it. One was the way that Colin's pointed out. Basically there's this like eval stuff with like rbn init. But the other command you can do is just rbn rehash, and that's if you're using RBN. Our VM, I think, doesn't have this problem at all, so you're not going to need to do that. So basically the gist is you run gem install lolcommits, you wait for this to go, and then you sort of are ready to go. So you scroll down, and basically the details, it's pretty simple. There's a lot of different options. You can basically set it up to have like animated GIFs. There's a lot of different configuration options. You can read up about the specific ones here, but I think I'll just take the default. So basically what you can do is just copy this line of code. You're in like an application directory like I am. You run this command, lolcommits enable. So this is going to make it so it automatically does this, and it tells us about this like this post commit hook, that whatever that means, but basically it means it's going to do the magic of automatically taking a photo of us when the screen goes off. So I can go to my code, maybe change the README, hello, save the file, jump back into the terminal, standard git stuff, git add all, git commit -am, hello. And now when I do the git commit, it just kind of hangs for a second. It takes a lot longer. So instead of it being like just immediate, It takes a second. It says preserving this memory or this moment in history. And now that image is sort of stored on my computer. So I'm outside of the Vagrant environment. So what I'm allowed to do is I can use open to just open a folder in a directory that I have. And inside my home directory, there's a lolcommits folder. So I can just do this and it pops open this. And you can see I use it for like the Firehose lessons. There's some test stuff. You can go into the Slurry and you can see the different things that we had here. This is the one that looks like it was being done as I was doing the lightning talk. So if I just kind of pull this into this is, you can see this is the hello and this is me giving the talk and sort of all that stuff. So pretty cool. I wasn't really thinking about it. It just happened, and that's kind of part of the fun of lolcommits. So in addition to sort of taking these photos, there's a pretty robust plugin library that allows you to so if you just do a search for plugins, there's a full page. So you can spam your friends on Twitter with photos of you. You can sort of change the commit message, make it sort of translated a little bit differently. I built this site, this lolcommits.com page, which sort of is a tracking system. It's actually a little bit broken right now. So if you're excited about sort of contributing to open source, this is a perfect opportunity to fix. So if you go here, basically there's a way to sort of get started, all this stuff. You go to log in and it's, oh, maybe it's fixed. It was broken a while ago, but basically the gist of it is you can go to like different places and you can see here's a bunch of selfies of me just coding along, and it works pretty well if you have teams of people. So if you're working on a team, you can set up like a group of stuff. So this, one of these is like a former, here we go. So these are all my buddies that we're taking selfies with them through that. So if you want to contribute to this, maybe make it look a little bit better. It's not the world's best looking app, but it's certainly the world's coolest app. So that's just a quick 360-degree view of the lolcommits gem. And I guess to sort of keep talking a little bit more about this stuff, like while this is completely like frivolous and kind of goofy, it actually does show you how to actually, an example of how to use these GitHub post commit hooks and these different Git hooks, which is kind of interesting. So basically if you type the ls command in the Git folder, you can see there's a hooks folder. If you go to the hooks, basically Git will sort of run these programs at different points. So basically after you commit, it's going to run this program, which is going to trigger the lolcommits gem. There's pre-commits, pre-pushes, and these are actually really good if you want to sort of enforce certain stuff. You can have this automatically change like line endings. So if you, like one person is on Windows, another person is on a Mac, you could just add like a pre-commit hook that just goes in and changes the line endings, automatically converting like tabs to spaces, stuff like that. So there's a lot of actually really useful stuff that these Git commit hooks can do. But this is just kind of a goofy, trivial, like pointless one. But it's also super fun. I love this gem. If you're not using it, you probably should be. So it's just a quick little plug for my world's favorite Ruby gem. Feel free to add plugins to it. Maybe you could post to like, I don't know, like an app that you build, or you could do, the possibilities are basically endless. So that's kind of the gist. And that's all I got. I'm the only person without slides. So I just kind of like rolled with it. And that's that. So does anybody have any questions about lolcommits? Otherwise, we'll probably jump into sort of more of the breakout sessions.
Dude, I totally have to add that to my blog project.
Oh, lolcommits integration? I love it. Yeah. And that adds so much to sort of the story, right? Like you have the code, you have the person, and then you have the selfie of them. It's funny though, because you forget it's off and then you end up being like, huh? It's like that. So.
What should we contribute to? The actual lolcommits gem or to lolcommits.com?
All of them. Do all of them and add all of the features. It doesn't matter, right? Like this is stupid stuff, but it actually kind of like, if you do even add like a stupid little feature, like this is a cool conversation starter, right? Like you're in an interview and they're like, oh, so what have you done? Oh, just a little bit of open source on what? And you're like, oh, lolcommits. It's like, oh, let me tell you about it. And then you're like teaching them about this like really stupid like thing. And they're like, why would you do this? And you're like, it's super fun, man. And like builds a human connection. So I think just even adding like a small feature, building a plugin, changing around, maybe like this is like, I built the site itself in like an afternoon. It is, I was actually looking at the code and it's not as bad as I thought it was, but there's tons of support. Like it doesn't support animated GIFs, so you could add support for that. It doesn't support a lot of stuff. So do whatever you want, but just something. And I'm sure the pull request will either get merged or there'll be like an interesting conversation that'll be valuable. Cool, good stuff. All right, guys. So now I think some people might want to jump onto like separate sub calls and talk about sort of like breakout sessions. So basically, if you want to sort of like run like a sub call and maybe deal with a Google Hangout, maybe pitch the sort of like conversation that you sort of, or how you want to do it. And you guys can sort of break into separate like Hangouts and do that all via Slack. So does anybody want to jump in and sort of talk about sort of like do a pitch for hanging out on yours?
Yeah, if anyone's interested, we can do like a Google Hangouts, and I can help you get it installed, get Jekyll installed. Maybe we can try and get it set up to push to GitHub, and then kind of just show you how to do posts and navigate around.
Cool, good stuff.
If anybody wants to talk about Rick Ross or Choco Tacos, we can do
I think that's going to be a pretty popular one. Cool.
Yeah, sorry, Colin.
I want to go there.
We'll be recording it.
Epic. Cool, good stuff. All right, guys. Well, I think we're all set. So I think the Firehose Lightning Talks have been a wild success. I think this was awesome. It was super fun to hear all the different topics. I personally learned a lot about like Jekyll and the Twilio API, and Ben's was super good. Unfortunate that Nico couldn't make it. Like that would have been really awesome. Hopefully he can make the next one. And we have another session that a student recorded from his home because he wasn't able to make it. So it's about iTerm. So I'll put that in the Slack channel and you guys can watch that if you're interested in it. It's a pretty interesting talk about how to build kind of a really robust dev environment with like consoles and stuff like that. So if you're like the type of person who really likes to own their environment, like watching that is like a no-brainer. It's really good. So yeah, that's that. Thanks everybody for coming. This has been awesome. And yeah, jump in the Slack channel and sort of start talking to each other. Cool, good stuff. All right, later guys.
Bye.